Hello, everyone. This week we're looking at welcoming communities and the role of immigration in healthy communities. And I think it's an important topic for a variety of reasons. We're going to hear from George on it, but I'll just start by saying that for many rural communities that are risking the loss of population, it's critically important. So, George, from your perspective, why do you think, and I know I stole that one answer there, but why, you might want to build on that, why do you think immigration is important to rural communities?
The Great Lakes St. Lawrence watershed has 20% of the fresh water in the world. With climate change going forward, some areas of the world will become uninhabitable. And that water in and of itself, and the fact that at least to the short and middle term, as our climate adjusts, that'll become a tremendous asset going forward. So I think that refugees, environmental refugees, going forward will be a huge component, which by and large we're not thinking about. In some of the climate change adaptation plans that are being prepared, it is something that's being thought about, but it's very much a peripheral thing, and because we sort of attach to the things that we do and the interests we do have, we haven't kind of divorced ourselves from that to think about what all the different ramifications are of changing the physical boundaries of the world we live in on our social determinants. So that's going to be a big element going forward that I'm not sure that anybody's really thinking about. The second observation I would make is that for most rural and small town communities in Ontario, I have the feeling that if you look carefully at the background, they were much more diverse in the past than they are right now. And so we frame this thing of immigration a bit differently in the sense that empirically, what we're talking about is actually becoming more diverse, or returning to the diversity that we had in the past. Certainly with the Aboriginal communities, my ancestors came in 1830 from Ireland. I know that he would meet the traditional harvester harvesting in his area, and they would have meals together occasionally. When I think of Port Colborne, the community I'm living in right now, there were 3 synagogues in Port Colborne 50 years ago, or none. Priceville in Grey County, it's kind of largely an abandoned community right now. But it was acted as one end of the trail that slaves who escaped slavery in the South ended up when they came to Ontario. So I think my second point is that what we're doing when we think about immigration is recapturing the kind of diversity that we've lost in a lot of the rural communities and that we live in Southern Ontario. And I also think if we think of diversity as perhaps what about the LB, the gay, lesbian communities? In Port Colborne, that community is represented in several of the businesses in that recreational-oriented, tourism-oriented component of West Street, which is perhaps the most vibrant street in the community, and but not well accepted within the broader community. And that's a kind of I would think not so much about immigration, but think about diversity and how we can make it easier for all the different communities that have lived and will live in our community achieve safe environments. Quite simply.
Very, very interesting points there. And if you mentioned Priceville as an example, which is a small community in Grey County. If I can come back to that as an example, how would a more welcoming community, how would immigration perhaps enhance or contribute to healthy communities for that little village?
Recapturing the cultural variety of the community becomes something that, from a tourism, recreational perspective, and from an identity perspective, just creates richness and texture.
Yeah.
That
Makes it a better place to live.
Yeah.
So that's great. So what does a welcoming community mean to you? How does a community become welcoming, or what do you think it needs to be to become welcoming?
I think of Port Colborne, and I think everything's kind of geared to the people that have lived there. Institutions, cultural and social institutions that welcome people more freely, and a society that incorporates people within the fabric more quickly. I think that becomes key. The planners kind of sit on the fence on that. Public health, to some extent, sits on the fence. There are some ramifications I want to talk about in other sections, but I think that's a component of just being more open for business.
Good. And if we set out to achieve goals of becoming more welcoming, what are there any ideas you have around how we would measure that, or what the role of the planner might be in that? Is it through public engagement, public consultation? Any thoughts there?
Having forums and opportunities that enable people to mix and mingle become really crucial. And that could stretch from just simply a friendship center to a place where businesses could be incubated together. So you would have the ability for people to rub shoulders, share coffee, meal, or discuss issues that they're facing. I think those become pretty important, and those are things I think planners can begin to think about as you organize the activities within the community and the land use. Just create opportunities for people to meet.
I really like the point you brought to the table, which it is about immigration, but it's also about that diversity, and it's about welcoming in the sense, and I'm even thinking of public engagement strategies. Have you thought about childcare?
Well,
right?
Let me just think of another. There's a large Métis community in Niagara region, large Aboriginal community too, Francophone community. Welland is the third largest Francophone community in Ontario. And advertising, and that not as something that's kind of hid off in a corner, but that's a strength.
Indeed.
Promoting that. And just sort of working with that and providing people the opportunity to appreciate and to share ideas within that context really becomes important.
Those are fantastic comments. Thank you very much, George. And George McKibbon, you're from, your firm is McKibbon-Wakefield, right, out of Burlington. And that was a paid political commercial, so thank you for that, George.